Hi everybody, I thought it was about time that we did some video and showed how some of our kits are put together. Now I know most of you guys that are buying my kits have built 1,000 rockets and probably have 1,000 of them in your closet and all that, but there be new people that aren't quite clear on how you put something like this together, or maybe you just want to put it together and put it on display. But however you plan to build this rocket, I figured it'd be good to show you some things. Now, there is going to be a complete construction video of which parts of this will be part of for the X-15 that so many of you have ordered, and we'd really appreciate you doing that and your patience because it's taken us a while to get all this together. It's just Mary and myself doing this right now. So I wanted to show you some of the things. Obviously this is pretty well built, but now we have the decals. So I wanted to show that. I wanted to show you the engine mount and that being mounted and how I hook up the shock cord and those procedures. And then I'm going to build another one and add to this video later on all those steps as well. So we have the nose cone here, and I've done my very best to get these to be pretty hollow and pretty light. But according to the sim, they need to be pretty heavy so that we get the center of pressure and the center of gravity close together and in the right position. So it's very hollow, as you can see. You're going to have to take this little piece of styrene and put it in there and glue it to the inside, and then the eye bolt hooks to that, and that's what you hook the shock cord and the parachute to eventually. We also have this resin cast piece here, which is very nice and hollow, which is the tail cone, which fits on here. It's very loose on this one because originally when I cast the first part up, it had expanded because some water got into the material, and I forced it in there, so it's kind of loose now. Yours won't be. It'll fit nice and tight, and you can glue it in. And then, of course, we have the engine mount, which is pretty routine, except we don't have a retainer here. We use electrical tape instead. So the first thing I want to do is hook up our eye bolt to this so that we can then connect the shock cord to that. So I like to connect my shock cord to the engine mount. I just think it's stronger than putting it on the inside with the paper lug and doing it that way. So, and you know, we got plenty of shock cord. So here's the finished engine mount, and I'm just going to drill a little hole with the Dremel tool in it to start. I'm going to take the eye bolt and screw it in here. And it's a little close because I ordered bigger ones this time, but it'll still go in there. There's less chance of this ever coming loose than using the paper mount that they typically give you, in my opinion. And it went at an angle, which is, I think, problematic. We'll find out. No, it's fine. It's fine. But try to use a longer drill bit and try to get it in a little bit straighter than that. Then what I like to do is I back the eye bolt out a bit. I take a little bit of medium CA like that, and I like using Zap-A-Gap the best. It's really good stuff. And then put that in there, and a tiny bit of kicker. You don't always want to use kicker with CAs, at least in my opinion, because what happens is that if you accelerate the glue to go off faster, it's not as strong as if you let it dry on its own. But that's pretty strong. I just did a little misting of it, and that's really going to hold our shock cord well. So I'm going to go get some shock cord and tie that to here. So now I'm going to thread this through the eye bolt, try to tie it as close to the edge as you can. I'm just going to do a simple, regular knot here. That, pull it tight. Then I'm going to knot it again. I feel kind of silly showing you this stuff, but I can't assume that everybody knows these things that builds a kit. And then I'm just going to put a little tiny drop of CA on there. It wasn't exactly little, but it'll be fine. Just to make sure it never slips. I use the Zap-A-Gap medium. You can use thin too, but this will never, ever come out of there, so, which is a good thing. Okay, so we're going to drop, of course, the shock cord down through the body tube and drop that down that way. And what I'm going to do next is, try to keep this oriented towards the camera, is put some glue. I'm just going to use wood glue here. Hopefully I'll be more successful in getting this to come out than I was with the CA. There we go. I always pour a little bit in a cup and take a popsicle stick. And I'm just going to run it along the edges here. It doesn't take much to keep this glued in. And we will leave some of the mistakes in because I noticed that Mr. Tim at Apogee does that, and it's the source of humor a lot of times too, for me anyway, because nobody's perfect. We all make dumb mistakes. So we're going to slip that in there, and it will not go in. There, finally. I'm going to wipe off the extra glue before I get it all over the pretty airplane. What I want to do then, of course, is put this on to check how far down it should seat. Once this is, once your tail cone is level and in there, like that, and you can do this, you're good to go. That's how far you need it to sit out. Now, when the engine's in, you can tell by the end of the hook here that it's going to stick out about that far, which clears this, so there's no chance of you melting the plastic, and it's easier for you to get the engine out. So you're going to let that dry for a while, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue in the tail cone. Yep. You know, 40-something years, almost, no, I won't even say the almost. 40-something years of building models for movies and all other kinds of things and RC plane stuff. You'd think I know how to do this without making a mess. See, don't you feel better now? Because many of you think the same thing when you're building a model. There, that will dry somewhat clear. It's amazing that this wood glue does dry really clear. And that takes care of installing the engine mount and the shock cord. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. And what I'm going to do next is install this little plastic tube inside here so that we can have an eye bolt in there as well. So you've got this little piece of plastic tubing in your little goodie bag for engine mount and your eye hooks or eye bolts or whatever you want to call them. You might be wondering what that's for. This is what it's for. We're going to kind of flat sand this a little bit at an angle. And kind of I guess it'd be like a 20-degree angle or so. Are you seeing that, Mary? Okay. The angle. Okay. Because we're going to put it inside of here, right on the edge. The other thing too, if I overlooked sanding these down, you might want to flat sand them down. It takes some of the sharpness off there. That's better. You'll notice too with our body tubes that the body tubes are all hand cut using an Estes cutter, and they can be a little off. So what I do is I cut the tube a little oversized, so if it's a little too ragged for you, you take a piece of wood like this, put some sandpaper on it, glue it down, and flat sand it. Just lightly, just to take the raggedness off of it. I think a lot of you know about that, but in case you don't, that's how you do it. Now we've got this, it's been cut kind of at an angle so it'll fit in there a little bit better. And the bolt fits in there, a screw, kind of loose, so you want to put CA in with it once you do that. I have to get a piece of sandpaper. So what I do is I take a piece of sandpaper and rough up the edge inside there where you're going to put the piece of plastic, the tubing, like so. And of course, the tubing is already pretty roughed up. I'm going to put a little bit of CA in there. Try to find the flattest spot you can find. So I'm going to sit this down into the glue. And try to ignore the forklift outside my door that absolutely knows what we're shooting this. And I just put a little bit of kicker on it and let it go off. And if you're really paranoid about this coming loose, you can build a little bit of micro balloons and 5-minute epoxy or 30-minute epoxy over this, and it will never come loose. But I haven't had one come loose doing it this way. Where it's not glued down, the plastic is flexing, but it's not coming loose. So now I'm going to take this and put a bunch of glue on it. And if you have thick CA, it would be better to use it than what I'm using right here, but this will also work. And then we're going to kick that off a little bit. So, and the only thing I don't like about this is the angle it's at, because it could rub against the side and make it hard for the ejection charge to move it. So before it kicks off all the way, make sure you get this parallel to the side of the nose cone. And you can see that's very strong. I'm going to put a little bit more glue down in there. And there's already kicker in there. You don't need more. That will go off and keep that from moving. So that's how we do that. And of course, the next step is going to be to attach our 18-inch parachute, which is quite large for this model. But, you know, this nose cone is pretty heavy. And as it turns out, in the rocket sim, it needs that weight to keep this model stable. It puts the center of pressure and center of gravity in pretty much the right location with this thicker, heavy nose cone. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this on to the eye bolt, of course. Like so. And again, and this is why I don't put the decals on until I do all this, because I'm kind of beating this model up a bit doing this. It's the first time for me building it too, keep in mind. A little dot of CA just to secure that that doesn't come loose. Okay, and now we got our parachute, and we're going to cover how that goes together, because these are new for me and I haven't put one of these together yet. So you're going to take this out of the bag, of course, and what you'll find inside is you'll find your parachute, the little grommets, which strengthen the plastic where you're going to make your ties. You have your nylon cord and a very handy swivel, which is much better than just tying the cord to the eye bolt. Now, these are pretty nice that I get from Bill at Balsa Machining, and right on the package it shows you how to put this together. And so I have put this type together before, and what I'm finding very interesting is that these chutes are, well, you can see that you have different sizes all within the same chute. So I'm assuming that this one is an 18-inch chute. Diagonally? Yes, it is. I'm going with 18 inches as I yell over the forklift. So let's see what step one is. Parachute case, a single parachute at either 18, 15, or 12-inch size. So I was wrong on the sizes, but that's what my ruler said. So the outside dash 18. So we're going to cut this out, of course, and I'm going to use just a straight edge as I poke a hole in it, like so, because I'm going to go with 18 inches. Where I'm going is a little rough when they land. Now, this has, of course, the tying and the configuration of how to put your nylon cord on. But I think most of you probably know that. But it's all on here, which is really handy. So I'm going to cut this side. Go very slowly because sometimes it'll try to move on you, the ruler, and then you'll cut inside, and you don't want to do that. So just drag very slowly at first. Get a score line in there. I'm finding it's cutting it right, just doing that. Cut again. I like these better than the Estes chutes. I don't know why. I like the pattern on them. They're pretty. So, okay, next up, we're going to, step 2 is to, they call it a parachute reinforcement disc over the 6 corners of the parachute, which is figure B. So those are these. And so we're going to do that. You just peel off. You stick them on the little hole there. Can you tell I've done this before? Okay. I used to, originally, in my former kits from Hostile Projectiles, which many of you remember me from, I made my own parachutes out of trash bags, which were very successful. But they didn't have pretty graphics on them and stuff, and they took a bit to make. So I decided to, when I saw that Balsa Machining and Bill had these, they looked good to me, and I said, you know what, I'm going to save myself the trouble, and you'll have a prettier looking parachute too. Of course, if you want to use a nylon chute, you can. I do on a lot of my bigger stuff. So according to step 3, we want to tie the shroud line through the hole and yada, yada, yada. Okay, one thing though that I probably should figure out first is, it does have a reference here to how to cut and break up the individual pieces that you will need to make the cord. So what they want you to do for the 18-inch chute is to cut 3 lengths that are 37 inches long. Took me a minute to figure out what they meant. So I'm going to do that because you're going to double them up. Okay. This yardstick has seen better days. You want it to be fairly precise when you do the cut because you don't want the parachute to be uneven. You want it to be level. Oh. This is really nice nylon cord too. And they give you like exactly the right amount, shy of 1.5 inches. Okay, so those are cut. And what we're going to do next is the configuration. And can you see that okay, Mary? Mm-hmm. There's your configuration. That's how you want to tie them on. So, and you want to make the ties fairly even as well. So what you're going to need to do is they want you to poke a hole in there with a pencil. Thank you, Mary. And so we're going to poke our holes. I know this takes a little bit more time than just pulling out a finished chute and tying it onto your eye bolt, but I actually enjoy building everything, so even this. Okay, so now I'm going to flip it on its back, and I'm going to start tying. So I found that if you put the string in from the back side, it's easier to tie for some reason, and plus, try to make sure you don't have super glue or any kind of glue on your fingers like I do. That way you won't cuss so much and disturb your neighbors or your family, because it's like, you know, it's very slippery. It's really hard to tie because your fingers aren't gripping this nylon. I believe this is nylon. Now I'm going to tie it again a second time and pull the slip knot so it's just outside the diameter of, no, it doesn't want to do it. It's because my fingers are covered in glue. I did it. It's just outside slightly. That's what you want. The first one I did was not that way. It'll still be fine. Now I'm going to collect these 3 together. Okay, at this point, you should all be fairly familiar with this. You've got your 3 lines there. You're going to collect them like that. You're going to grab it close to the middle as you can and pull, because you want all the points to be level to each other, these points here, as best you can. So we get a nice opening. So you got your little swivel here, and this can be a little trying because you want to put these through, so you got that nice clear opening there through the swivel eye there. And it's even harder when you're trying to keep it to camera. As you can see clearly, this can be very, very hard to do. But swivels work better than doing it just through the eye bolt. And see, I'm not getting that third line through there. Boy, and the glue doesn't help either. There, I got all 3 of them through. Now I'm going to, without crossing anything, keep that like that, you see? And now we're going to take this parachute. What you want to do is then take the parachute and feed it through here. And that can also be tricky. Like so, you see? So that it actually makes like a slip knot. And have I done this right? You should, there. Whew, I did it. But it's worth the effort, because this little swivel here is going to turn and turn and turn freely no matter how much the parachute turns, and not bind it and wrap it up. So well, I think they work a lot better. I put swivels on all my model rockets. So now I'm going to take this, which is really, really stiff, which is good because you don't want it popping loose. You can hook it onto the bolt, the eye bolt there, like so, and then push it back in there, like so. And there, this is what comes back down to earth, you hope, once it opens. And so you should end up with a configuration like this, and the whole thing will come back down to earth, like so. And if it lands softly enough, you should keep your fins on. If not, you know where the glue is. But that's basically how you do the parachute assembly, hook up the eye bolt to the nose cone, and attach it to the motor mount, which I think is the best option. Next, I'm going to show you how to use these sticker shock decals so you can see how easy they are to use. And I prefer them, and I'll show you why when we get a closer look at a 10-year-old model that I used water slide decals on. Okay, Mary's taking a little break, so we're just going to fix the camera off here. I've got the monitor turned my way so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Always helps to have a really good camera. So here's our decals, and these are vinyl transfers. And I'm going to show you, I've worked with these a whole bunch. They can be a little trying at times, but you just have to be very cautious and careful with them. I'm going to get a pair of scissors. Now you want to, of course, cut right between, not over, the actual vinyl transfer. Because really these are transfers. So you cut it off like that, as you can see here. And then you very slowly peel that. You don't want it to stick to the backing. You want it to come off nice and easy. And if it starts to, just rub it back till it sticks. There's a lot of instructions on Mark's site. So I'm hoping, you know what, I'm going to go check with actual pictures of the X15 and come back. I'm finding from version to version there's a difference in where these are placed, and so I found that they're actually placed right here. So I'm going to just do that. So what I'm going to do is line it up pretty good, right about there. And I really hope I'm doing this the right spot. And you can just lay it down and it'll stay there, and you can still get it up again. If you're very careful, because you haven't rubbed it yet. So if you need to reposition it, but be very careful in doing that. But once you get it pretty straight, and this is, I'm just going to use the back of my fingernail on this one, and I'm just going to rub it like so. And you want to make sure your model's very clean. That hasn't been sitting around getting dust on it and stuff, or these will not stick as well. But what I have found, I'm going to peel this up and go very slowly. If you see a letter start to peel up, push it back down. Just take your time. What I love about this is there's no frosting, because water transfers will do that if they trap air between the surface and the decal. Now here's where it gets tricky. You got these little periods. You want to make sure those are really down there good. They don't come with the backing, and they're not. Mark does a great job on these. There you go. That is beautiful. Yes, you can feel them. Yes, they're raised. You have to touch it to know that. They just look fantastic. That worked out so well. Let's do the other side. Same deal. And I'm going to cut it a little bit closer. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to kind of rub this just to make sure that everything's sticking to the front part. And very slowly lift it off. And see, we got one staying behind. And we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is go back, and I'm going to use my fingernail and just kind of rub that down. You can also use a wooden stick or popsicle sticks like this. And I'm going to go from the other side this time, because the little periods and little dots have a tendency to want to stick to the backing. You can see these are coming off really well. When we get to the little dots, that time it stayed, see? So now, doing the same thing and trying to keep them even as possible to match the other side. And you can make little pencil marks and stuff. I'm not going to be so exacting because this is our beta. But even at that, I got it on really straight. So, I mean, water slide decals are great, don't get me wrong. But I guarantee you that 10 years later, these will look great, and I'll show you what the non-versions look like. Going very slowly, because you don't want those little periods to come up. Wowie zowie. That looks great. And you can see just how easily those went off. Now I'm going to show you what happens with water slide decals after 10 years. They start to come up. You can see the edges on them. Some of them are cracking and peeling off. Stuff like this I don't like. You can see the edges of the water slide, since they're printed on white paper. so that we could have a black background. Originally, these looked fantastic, but look at them. They're all shriveling up. They're not going to last the flight when I fly this finally. Whereas these, if you look at my Starship Enterprise, the big giant one that I made, the 66-inch long one from scratch, it has these decals, these exact kind, and to this day, and that's 10 years, they are absolutely perfect. So let's do the tail, and then I think that you have the idea for doing this. You know how it's done. It's not real hard. I'm going to cut these out. Now, if they stick down, you can still peel them up and reposition them, but you have to be very delicate about doing that. And really, it's almost better to use a straight edge and a X-Acto blade going between them, because Mark tries to get them as close together as he can to save space on the sheet when he prints it. Well, we lost the little dot in the A there, so I'm going to press down again, making sure that those are really down. And this is this side. Okay, and I'm going to go from the back again, the back side away from that. And that time, the little dot in the A stayed. So you got to make sure, check it first, because they may try to peel up on you. So now I'm going to take this and try to get it exactly in the right spot, which is about there. Let's see how good I do. That looks about right. I might be a little short there on the edge. I am, but that's okay. We're going to leave it. It's a beta build. And then again, I like to go over it with a popsicle stick, especially over those little dots in the A, and do that, and then peel back. And yeah, and I definitely missed the edge. And I see I've got the stripe on the bottom. It was coming with the backing. And this is some of the things that people don't like about this, but you just have to be patient. Rub it down. See? It stayed. Stayed put. Very slowly, but surely. And don't call me Shirley. There you go. And so I was a little short. I could have been a little bit more forward, but ultimately I think that looks really, really nice. And the more I do it, the more it looks like the actual plane. So that's how you work with these decals from Sticker Shock or any kind of vinyl transfer. Again, as I've said, I think they're much better than the water slide because they will last longer. And these are rockets, and you're going to abuse the heck out of them. It occurred to me it might be handy to actually show you more of this because that way you'll know where to place these. Although there's plenty of reference for the X15 online. The Star and Bar, of course, goes on the left-hand wing, and on the opposite side underneath it goes on the left if you have it upside down. And it goes kind of, well, not exactly parallel to the leading edge. You can see the grain. You could make it to that, but it actually goes kind of catty corner right there and about like this. And before I put it down, I want to make sure I do. I have it in the right place. And then rub. Boy, that ejection charge got me. I'll let it stay out. And it should peel up really nice. There we go. And then we've got these, the U.S. Air Force, which goes on that side. And they are at the same angle. And again, I like to make sure I rub them all down. Peel them back. There's no little periods on these, so, and these go about like this. I love working with these decals, I really do. You can see with this model that I didn't get rid of all the grain in the wood. You can. I was building this kind of quickly to get a beta built. See how, make sure everything went together right, which it does. And of course, the next one I build, I'm gonna seal the wood much better and try to get rid of a lot of that wood grain. But I figure this one's gonna get beat around a bit on its trials, so. Okay, so now we're gonna put the same thing on this side. Oh, see now, let me show you. See this? It's coming, it's staying stuck to the back and you don't want that, and that's why I'll put it down. And I am in frame, yes. And when it does that, I'll kind of just go back over it and rub it down like so. And now when I do this, it comes with it, you see? All right. And again, I'm going to put it on this side, kind of to the corner there, about like that. Peel it up. Do not do this fast because you will sometimes pull up the lettering, and if it folds and touches itself, you're pretty much in trouble. So it's looking pretty neat. The other thing is on this one, these are actual glass or clear plastic windows that I put in there, which you can do. You can just drill out those holes and put in actual windows. I may do it on this one, I may not, but I certainly will do it on the next build. Okay, so now that kind of gets us down to a few decals that are left. We've got the North American Aviation X15. And again, I have to go look at the model and the actual ship on the computer. I don't have my laptop here. So I'm going to go in the office, look at that, and I come back and we'll place that one. Okay, I found where they go. I'm going to start with these decals here are for the V23, this one here, and these are to replace the decals that originally were water slide. So those don't concern us right now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the X15 from the North American Aviation because that goes in front of X15, and X15 goes just ahead of the canopy on the side, about there. Yes, right about here. So again, we've got some very tiny little lettering there, especially that the dash. So I want to make sure that it's not going to lift up when I lift up this paper. And it didn't. Just rubbing it down makes all the difference in the world. So I might take that, turn it on its side a bit, and put it right about here. And just being cautious. It's a little crooked. Now, I'm going to lift it back up again very bravely. And see, it came away. Came away really well, and I'm going to level it out a little bit more. That looks a little better. And then rub it down. There's our X15, and then I'm going to take North American Aviation, which goes about here. And then we have this little NASA emblem that goes right here. Making sure that's all rubbed down really good. That's the wrong one. We want the short, no, it is the right one, I think. There's, on this shape, there's a short and a long. This tip here is a little bit shorter, and this one on the bottom is longer, and that's the correct, this one goes on this side. And it's kind of pointing right at X15. Rub that on, like so. Peel that off. And then, now we can put down the North American Aviation. I'm going to rub this again to make sure it's all going to stay, because it's really small lettering, and Mark was telling me that when you're making these decals, the small stuff can be a problem. You can only go so small. So some of the stuff is actually a little bigger in scale. Now, here's the deal. If you don't like these decals and prefer water slide, on the website there will be the file for the decals, and you can print your own water slide decals and put them on. And there's a lot there. They are absolutely scale and really quite nice. But for my, scale is important to me, yes, but I also like things to be practical. And these decals are practical. They're going to hold up way better than any water slide decal. And then if you have a printer that will print white and on clear, that's your best option. And there we got that. So, which looks really good. So that's pretty much all the decals. Now we have a lot of things like these reservoirs and fuel fills and a few other little vent locations and stuff, which you can put on the model, which will really add to the scale look. But that really looks nice to me. I'm very, very, here, get it in frame. So you've got a lot of other little decals here you can place on the model, vents and drains and locations and rescues and those types of things. So that add a lot to it. But I think just using these few really add a great deal to the look of this model. Okay, so here we are with all the decals placed on it that Mark provided from Sticker Shock, and I really think it really looks the part. Now, if you really want this to be, scale accurate, then I would suggest you go to our website, download the file there for the scale decals, get a printer that prints white, or print on white with the black background and make your own water slide decals, which you can do. So, but for me, these are the better option. These are the better way to go. They're not as scale, but they are not going to come off. You can coat these with some clear, which will help a lot too, to maintain their strength and longevity over the years. Should you not lose this in some field somewhere when you put a G engine in it and tried to fit it in there and it went out of sight. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, came out great. Love this X15, always have. And that completes this video for today.